Welcome to Civ 6 Stories, where we explore alternatives to history through the lens of the world's most addictive video game. Games are played on deity, no challenges. Generally, I don't use mods or game modes except for Sucretax Oceans. A great game is epic and tells a story. It has a history, all condensed down into 20 minutes. Along the way, you can learn tips and tricks on how to be a better Civ player, as well as strategies on how to play specific civilizations. Today, we're looking at the game I played as Abraham Lincoln of the United States of America. We founded our capital city, Washington, in place. Probably our first mistake. Still, our city tile was 2 food, 2 production. Not the worst start. In 3840 BC, we became the first civilization to meet the city-state of Auckland. 40 years later, we became the first civilization to meet Buenos Aires. In 3320 BC, we met the first of our rivals, Wilhelmina of the Dutch.
There are only 2 things I can't stand in this world. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch.
And 40 years later, we met Shaka of the Zulu. Barbarians west of our capital were a nuisance, to the point of threatening our entire civilization by the rate at which they produced units. The problem got bad enough that we were forced to purchase an archer unit so as not to slow down the production of new settlers, and so that we could settle new lands. In 2640 BC, America founded its second city, Philadelphia, right up against the border of the Zulu Empire. In 2600 BC, we met Cyrus of Persia. In 2440 BC, at long last, we were able to disperse the barbarian encampment that had been plaguing our capital for 1500 years. By 2360 BC, we had accumulated enough faith to found our pantheon and chose Divine Spark. In 2200 BC, from an envoy gained after collecting a nearby goodie hut, we decided to become suzerain of Buenos Aires. For the classical era, we chose the Free Inquiry dedication. Searching for slaves to improve the land near our cities, in 2080 BC, we decided to declare a surprise war on the Zulu. Our declaration of war was premature, and we sustained early losses. After 400 years of war, when Shaka offered us a peace deal with a very modest profit, we accepted. The rate at which barbarian encampments were able to build units near my cities upset a lot of my best laid plans. I needed to divert a lot of early energy and military power to attend to them, but we would not let them deter our progress. In 1120 BC, America founded its third city, Cincinnati.
Everyone who wasn't perfect but wasn't terrible should get to spend eternity in Cincinnati,
pushing its borders further south toward the border of the Zulu Empire. In 975 BC, with our discovery of political philosophy, we chose our Tier 1 government and became a classical republic. In 850 BC, in order to have a reliable source of iron, America founded its fourth city, New York.
Hey, we're in New York. I got a gun. Let's get to a Broadway show.
In an inconvenient spot by the coast. For the medieval era, once again we chose the Free Inquiry dedication. In 650 BC, America founded its fifth city, St. Louis, north up the Potomac River from Cincinnati. In 625 BC, in preparation for a possible invasion of the Zulu, we switched our government to an oligarchy. In 600 BC, America recruited the great general, Sun Tzu. In 475 BC, we levied Auckland's troops to aid us in our upcoming war effort. In 400 BC, with troops moving into their positions, America declared war on the Zulu. In 250 BC, America took to the seas for the first time to protect its fisheries around the city of New York. The Zulu possessed the mighty Impi warrior, but American troops outnumbered them. In 175 BC, the American assault on Qualomendlini was successful. America had hacked off one of Shaka's arms. In 125 BC, Shaka called for a military emergency against us to free Qualomendlini, and Wilhelmina agreed to fight alongside them. With war raging along the border between Qualomendlini and Amganganlovu, America recruited the services of El Cid to aid in the fight. It's rare that we retire our generals, especially so early after the recruitment, but with a spare great general at our disposal, we retired El Cid and made the world's first man-at-arms corps. In 250 AD, while striking at Amganganlovu, our mercenaries from Auckland had fulfilled their duty and left the battle. For the Renaissance era, the Zulu entered a dark age, and we chose the Hic Sunt Draconis dedication. We had finally put Amganganlovu under siege and took the city in 350 AD, but at what cost? By 450 AD, The Hague, a city that had flipped between the Dutch and Zulu, once again flipped to free cities. In 560 AD, Ngoma, on the edge of the Zulu Empire, was flipped to free cities. By 600 AD, American troops had surrounded the Zulu capital of Ulundi, but even with a siege tower, the city was too well fortified and prompted an American retreat. It was time to concentrate on capturing some of the free cities that were up for grabs. By 720 AD, The Hague was part of the Dutch Empire again, in an area of the world searching for stability and real leadership. By 760 AD, Ngoma also pledged its loyalty to Wilhelmina and the Dutch, even while under siege by the Americans.
And the Dutch. The Dutch.
In 780 AD, America founded New Orleans by the western coast just south of Buenos Aires. In 940 AD, a military emergency against the Dutch for their capture of the city-state of Anshan brought peace between America and Zulu, who united to restore Anshan's independence. We didn't discover divine right until 1000 AD, when we finally adopted a Tier 2 government and became a monarchy. In 1020 AD, America founded the city of Cleveland along the west coast north of Auckland. For the industrial era, as we had unlocked cartography but had not yet discovered the New World, we chose the Hic Sunt Draconis dedication. In 1090 AD, America captured its first Dutch city, the former Zulu settlement of Ngoma. Though now allied with us in the war against the Dutch, we kept the city for ourselves. In 1120 AD, we met our first cross-continental rivals, Sundiata Keita of the Mali and Kublai Khan of the Mongols. As always, this was a chance to trade some of our excess amenities for gold and curious exotic amenities in return. 10 years later, we met Gitarja of Indonesia. In 1170 AD, with our troops pushed to the edge, they finally captured The Hague. After taking The Hague and realizing that our forces had been pushed to their limit, in 1180 AD, after 3,000 years of continuous war, America was at peace with its neighbors. In 1210 AD, America founded yet another city, Boston, along the west coast halfway between New Orleans and Cleveland. That same year, America completed its first circumnavigation of the globe. By 1240 AD, our troops were healed up and hanging out by the border of the Zulu capital. Shaka was like, "Hey, what's up with that, dude? Invade or don't invade, but don't hang out there." And I'll admit that it was tempting. In fact, it was too tempting, and we declared a formal war right after swearing that we wouldn't. That same year, we met the last of our cross-continental rivals, Jadwiga of Poland, and took advantage of what could have been our last chance to exchange amenities and gold with a willing trading partner. In 1270 AD, American forces captured Ulundi, the Zulu capital. By 1330 AD, American forces had grown strong and took the fight to the Zulu, simultaneously assaulting the cities of Quaracuza and Ondini. 10 years later, American troops captured the city of Ondini. Quaracuza fell moments later. Mother Nature gave us a helping hand when the volcano overlooking Bulawayo erupted, laying waste to the city as our troops continued their assault. Indonesia were the first civilization to attempt to colonize a distant continent by founding Batavia at the edge of the Persian Empire. But it would not last, as by 1390 the settlement had flipped loyalty to free cities and would likely get absorbed by Persia. Bulawayo was a formidable city, and our invasion was grinding to a halt. Their defenses were tearing through our troops. The disappointment was compounded when we received word that we had failed to build the Colosseum. Struggling to cope with how this game was unfolding, we agreed to a peace deal with Shaka. We had won the war, but we felt that the cost had been far too high. Optimism returned when, in 1410, we recruited Albert Einstein. I was hemorrhaging diplomatic favor, and the World Congress gave me a chance to put a natural disaster aid request to the other members, so I took it to see what I could gain, if anything. Both my request and a military emergency against me were passed. Poland and Indonesia agreed to help us out. The Dutch also agreed to help us out while simultaneously agreeing to the military emergency to restore Ulundi to the Zulu Empire. In 1440, America recruited John Monash to aid in their efforts in defending Ulundi and take the fight to the coalition forces of the Dutch and Zulu. In 1470, the Dutch tried to walk a settler through America's acquired lands. What the hell were they thinking? After discovering nationalism, we finally began to form our military units into corps. When we formed our first fleet, we ensured for America a modern era and our first golden age. For a modern era golden age dedication with no peace on the horizon, stubbornly, we chose the to arms dedication. In 1515, America founded the Dutch colonial settlement of Detroit that would link America's core cities with its Zulu province. Bulawayo was one of the most formidably defended cities to which I have ever laid siege. Cracking through its defenses took centuries and incalculable manpower. But in 1585, American forces finally broke through and captured the city. The Zulu were no longer a force in the region, meaning that America now bordered the Netherlands and Persia. The Dutch tried to walk a settler through our territory again. We're not about to let that happen. In 1600, the great engineer James Watt brought his talents to New Orleans, and because of Lincoln's unique ability, 2 line infantries were recruited in the process. In 1615, America built the Taj Mahal in the capital city of Washington. The aid request did nothing for us, but it helped our rivals, the Dutch.
The Dutch. The Dutch.
We did, however, successfully defend Ulundi. By the end of that year, with the Zulu no longer a threat to us, we accepted their very lucrative peace deal. In 1635, America founded another Dutch colony, San Diego, at the very north of the empire toward the city-state of Buenos Aires. All of America's forces converged on the Dutch city of Nijmegen. It was a ruthless and bloody siege as American troops laid waste to the surrounding countryside. But they eventually broke through and captured the city, proving that Dutch cities, with persistence, could be taken. America now controlled the pyramids and the area around Sahara el-Baida. American troops were inefficient in the field, but we outnumbered the enemy 3-1. The same American horde responsible for ransacking Nijmegen advanced on Groningen and took the city in 1680. In 1705, after an attack from land and sea, American forces captured the city of Utrecht. The Dutch Empire was falling apart. We entered the atomic era with a lot of work to do. Understanding that we were likely to be at war for a while, we chose the to arms dedication. American forces refused to let up the pressure on the Dutch and captured the city of Maastricht in 1735. In 1745, Wilhelmina unilaterally declared a military emergency against America and discovered that she was alone in the defense of her crumbling empire. That year, Dutch slaves founded the American colony Chicago on the south side of Sahara el-Baida. In 1750, America recruited the talents of great scientist Robert Goddard. The way this game was playing out, America would require his services if they were to have any hope of winning the game. There was never a year of peace as America kept up their assault on the Dutch people and captured the capital city of Amsterdam in 1775. That same year, Anshan withdrew their allegiance to the Dutch Empire after 800 years as their vassal. Also that year, American troops captured the port city of Rotterdam. It felt like we had been slogging along and not overtaking our rivals in any meaningful way. Still, I always say that the World's Fair is a great barometer of how you're doing in the game, and we did really well, taking gold tier rewards, racing well past everyone else. By 1795, with the Zulu pushed to a distant quarter of the continent and the Dutch on the verge of extinction, it was time to explore new lands to conquer. Guitarja saw our fleet approaching her Indonesian outpost and asked what our plans were. We told her by declaring war. Moments after that declaration of war against Indonesia, American troops captured the last Dutch stronghold, Haarlem, and Wilhelmina was eliminated from the game. That year, after sufficiently subduing the peoples of the south, America turned its troops northward and began its invasion of the city-state of Kandy. Soon afterward, the American Navy began shelling the Indonesian outpost of Palembang. Because there was no one left to fight us, we won the military emergency against us to free Groningen. Growing impatient and with an information age golden age secured, though we could have absorbed Anshan through diplomacy, we took the former city-state by force in 1800. In 1802, we received our first announcement that our rivals, Persia, were exploring space. It prompted a swift reallocation of our scientific focus, and we began to research rocketry. We also began our invasion of Persia by shelling the walls of Tarsus that same year. In 1804, after researching class struggle, we adopted our Tier 3 government and, in typical American fashion, we embraced the tenets of communism. In 1808, American troops grabbed a foothold on lands across the Pacific Ocean when they captured the Indonesian outpost of Palembang. In 1810, we captured Kandy. In 1812, Guitarja called a military emergency against us to restore the city of Palembang to Indonesia. The Mali were their only ally in this quest. After capturing Kandy, our northern troops were looking for a new project. Chinguetti was right there, so we declared war. In 1814, our troops on the battlefield in western Persia captured the city of Tarsus. In 1820, American troops in the north captured the city-state of Chinguetti. From there, America's northern forces rushed in to invade northern Persia. In 1822, the main assault on Persia's western front continued with Americans capturing the city of Ispahan. Moments later, the Western Fleet captured Guitarja's second Indonesian outpost, the city of Surabaya. At this point, Persia was literally on fire. What the hell is that? In 1826, America's northern forces captured Gordian. After securing the Indonesian outposts on the edge of the New World, our Western Fleet could begin its invasion of Mali. In 1828, they captured the coastal city of Wallata and used it to establish a beachhead. In 1830, as Mongolia was taking its first great leaps into space, America built Petra in the city of Chicago. They also simultaneously recruited three great people, Ahmed Shah Massoud, Sergei Korolev, and Carl Sagan. Although America had not yet ventured out into space, we were well prepared to overtake our rivals when we finally did. By 1832, America lost control of Tarsus, but the invasion of Persia continued unabated as American soldiers captured Susa that same year. In 1834, the American Western Fleet captured the island city of Nioro and razed it to the ground. I should have probably paid more attention to this cultural update. By 1836, we had lost control of Gordian. But the invasion of Persia continued, and we captured the Persian capital city of Pasargadae that same year. Not long after, American soldiers recaptured Tarsus. The Persian Empire was collapsing. In 1840, in an unsuspected twist of fate, our pursuit of victory was cut short when Persia, without a capital city, embroiled in a punitive 40-year war with an aggressive superpower, and with an empire reduced to a few middling towns, won a surprise culture victory. America's path toward becoming the ultimate superpower was a long and difficult one, but this Persian victory came as a shock. Victory through military might, or through space, had looked achievable, especially since Persia, the first to reach space, were an empire on the verge of collapse. This defeat prompted many hours of soul-searching in an attempt to uncover what went wrong. I had been unable to build an empire that would stand the test of time, but I was certain that there was an alternate reality somewhere where America would rise to glory and together we would achieve victory. So what did I learn? The medieval and Renaissance were tough eras. The Zulu make for a tough enemy. The Dutch are no slouch either, and we found it difficult to make military gains during our very long and bitter war. We made some military mistakes getting caught eyeing the Zulu capital over fringe cities that could have contributed to the empire and would have been easier to take. We were also stubborn and continued the wars for too long instead of negotiating for peace, regrouping, and becoming stronger economically. During these eras, we divided our priorities and founded more cities than we conquered. The wars with the Zulu and Dutch slowed our snowball enough that we never recovered. Lagging behind culturally and not beelining toward nationalism, especially against an enemy like the Zulu who get bonuses that help them form corps and armies, further set us back and made the wars drag on. I made plenty of mistakes this game. One was retiring El Cid and making a very powerful man-at-arms unit. This unit was powerful for a while, but with gunpowder, the resource requirement of niter meant that acquiring the necessary 40 niter to upgrade him was nearly impossible, especially since my industrial zones were busy making melee units and automatically using up my niter reserves. It was a problem I did not foresee, but it made my mighty man-at-arms only really a force to be reckoned with for a half dozen turns or so until he became no better than a musketeer. War went on forever. I never overtook my enemies scientifically, never had any power spikes, and therefore cities took a long time to capture. But dividing my forces and fighting on 3 different fronts in the atomic era was the coup de grace. I didn't need to invade the New World. Only the Mongols were a scientific threat, but I had 3 space race great people on my side ready to deploy. Kudos to Persia, who obviously played a strong culture game from the get-go. Their Pairi Dayaza is a tourism force that I was unable to stop. If I had not divided my forces and thrown the kitchen sink at them when I had the chance, who knows? Perhaps I would have been able to derail their culture game earlier, eliminated them from the game, and then gone on to win a space race victory. But that's not how this history played out. Instead, this history would not be written by the hand of the victor. The victor, in this case, were history to continue for another dozen turns or so, probably wouldn't even exist. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to keep playing and making your own civilization stories, your own amazing paths through history, and I'll see you next time.